Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. A back and forth via social media between Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney, both of which are now in bed with Turkey El Sheikh. Teofimo said, "We are still fighting after Ryan beats you again. I'll handle him, then I'll finish you off for good." Devin Haney, to which Devin responded, "Jermaine Ortiz beat you, and Steve had you lumped up. Shut up." Teofimo responded by saying, "And still, now you're moving up to 147. At least we're going after bouts. Who are you fighting? Jose Ramirez?" Jose's just an appetizer, just a prelude to keep Devin busy till he fights Ryan for the second time, and presumably the third, if he wins the rematch, whereas Teofimo saying he's going after bouts.
I don't buy that.
Why not?
Bouts is said to be in negotiations for an Montes Stanionis fight, and Bouts was not among the 16 fighters mentioned for these Ring Magazine cards that Turkey's going to be doing. The ones that Devin's going to be on, Ryan, Teofimo. Bouts was not among the 16 fighters mentioned to be boxing on those shows. So when Teofimo says they're going after him, I'm not sold. The back and forth continued. Devin Haney asked, "Why didn't Teho fight Matias?" To which Teofimo responded, "Because Top Rank wanted to host it on the West Coast when it should be in New York City, forced it to be on pay-per-view, and lastly, offered $2.8 million when I am the last star power they have left. All roads are leaning towards Keyshawn as their next pupil." You're telling me $2.8 million and the chance to earn more on pay-per-view, that wasn't enough for you? What that tells me is you didn't think that fight was going to sell. That's all that tells me, because if you were going to get close to $3 million up front and the chance to earn more from the pay-per-view's upside, you must not have thought there was going to be one. Huh? Teofimo must not have thought that the pay-per-view was going to have an upside. In addition to the close to $3 million he was going to get, you figure that if you're that big a draw and you're that big a star, you can make the rest of your money from the upside. But when you turn down the fight, it must be because you don't think there's going to be one. So when you say that you're the only star they have left, the only star power, how much power, when even you don't think your fight was going to sell? Don't get confused, and don't lose sight of the fact that Teofimo basically admitted he priced himself out. Just because Turkey stepped in, and he's willing to pay him and a lot of other fighters above market value, that doesn't change that he priced himself out. If you take Turkey out of the equation and doing Teofimo's fights is left solely up to Top Rank, they're going to price the fight based on what they think it's going to generate, his marquee value. So if Teofimo is as big a star as he says he is, $2.8 million guaranteed, in tandem with the potential upside of the pay-per-view, should make for a nice chunk of change. Unless you don't think the fight is going to sell. And he didn't. He basically gave it away that you didn't think that fight was going to sell, because if you did, you would have had it. So now he's in bed with Turkey. And he's going to be boxing on one of those Ring Magazine cards against who I don't know. But Turkey doesn't match these guys soft. And that's the silver lining. While Teofimo is likely being paid well above his market value, what he can generate for a fight, he's going to have to earn that money. That's how it's been, and that's how it is. If what this latest development results in is a round robin between Devin and Ryan and Teofimo, who will be the last man standing? There's a lot of moving parts. Ryan has to make it past Isaac Cruz. Devin has to make it past Jose Ramirez. Teofimo has to make it past whoever he's fighting. And assuming they all do,
all three and get to move into fights with each other.
Bitch!
You already know I have Devin winning the rematch with Ryan. I have Devin Haney outpointing Ryan Garcia in their second fight because they're both on an even playing field now. There will be no games with weight.
Not a Golden Boy show, so Ryan's not the house fighter.
He's under close scrutiny after testing positive for Osterin in 3 separate tests conducted by 2 separate entities, VADA and the New York State Athletic Commission. VADA, who will be testing him again, per a Boxing Scene article. I think Devin's going to win the rematch. Now that there are no games to be played, I think he's going to outpoint Ryan.
Might have caught lightning in a bottle the first time out, being able to play all those games. This time, I don't think it happens that way.
And Teofimo?
It's a wild card because he hasn't been looking on form his last couple of fights, but he has since hired Eddie Reynoso. Eddie is training him now, so we have to see what improvements, if any, Teofimo has.
Teofimo makes, because if the Teofimo that fought Jermaine Ortiz shows up, if the Teofimo that fought Sandor Martin shows up, Devin beats him.
Why are you mad?
I noticed that whenever I talk about that fight, whether it's the Ryan Garcia fight or the Teofimo Lopez fight, 1 or 2 guys in the comment section always get mad about it.
Why are you mad?
Just telling you who I think wins the fight. The Ryan Garcia fight, the Teofimo Lopez fight, that if Teofimo don't get better, if he keeps looking the way he's been looking, he loses.
I don't give a shit if you don't like Devin.
For whatever reason you don't like him, that's between you and God. If I have to forecast the outcome of those fights using history as any indicator of things to come, if Teofimo don't improve, he loses.
And if you want to play some kind of game where I'm supposed to ignore all the stuff that happened in the Ryan Garcia fight, the Osterin, the weight,
Play that game by yourself. Play with yourself.
I think Devin wins the rematch with Ryan, and we have to see what improvements, if any, Teofimo makes now that he's being trained by Eddie Reynoso.
It's what I think. If you don't like it, I don't care. Men's Cruiserweight news. Jai Opetaia is focused on Cruiserweight unifications and not Alexander Usyk.
There's been a lot of talk about Usyk moving back down to Cruiser on the heels of his second win over Tyson Fury. Jai's not worried about that.
While some fans may be interested in a potential fight between Cruiserweight champion Jai Opetaia and heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk, Opetaia is more interested in unifying world titles in his division. Opetaia successfully defended his IBF title with a devastating knockout over David Naika in his last fight. Opetaia was previously chasing a unification bout with WBO champion Chris Billum Smith. Billum Smith instead faced WBA champion Zurdo Ramirez. In November, Ramirez defeated Billum Smith to unify those 2 alphabet titles. Opetaia was originally scheduled to face Hussein Sin Cara.
Hussein pulled out, David Naika stepped in.
The Australian is now only focused on unifying the division and becoming undisputed. I'm chasing unification fights and that's it, Opetaia told Boxing Scene. Anything else outside of a unification fight, I'm fighting who they want me to fight, not who I want to fight. I'm chasing unification fights and that is it. There are always conversations, but conversations aren't contracts, so I'm waiting. I hope it's Ramirez next.
The caveat.
The WBA has ordered Zurdo Ramirez to defend his WBA title against his mandatory challenger, former champion Uniel Dorticos, and the teams have until February 15th to negotiate per WBA rules. Zurdo's next fight must be against Dorticos. So where Jai Opetaia is hoping that he can face Zurdo next, unless they can convince Uniel to step aside, and unless they can get the WBA's blessing, Zurdo is booked, at least momentarily. Jai's promoter, Eddie Hearn of Matchroom Boxing, has talked up Opetaia potentially moving up in weight to take on Usyk. Opetaia, however, has unfinished business in the Cruiserweight division to deal with first. Man, you know, we want to go up to heavyweight and collect the heavyweight world title, but I'm just so focused on getting these fights done first, he said. You know, unification fights are so hard to get, and I've just been chasing them, so I'm not worried about anything else until I tick off these boxes. Then once that's done, we'll look further down the road. Opetaia, who attended the press conference for Better B vs. B Vol 2, has been linked with defending his title against both the leading light heavyweights.
Assuming the winner moves up, or the loser, or both.
Hey, if it happens, said Opetaia. You know, I'm not here to call these boys out. I'm here to show respect.
addressing the possibility of Jai Opetaia one day moving up to heavyweight.
Because that's what Eddie Hearn keeps talking about. Perhaps one day he will, but Jai Opetaia is not really the biggest of cruiserweights, and he wouldn't be big at all at heavyweight. He'd be quite small. He is a very lean cruiserweight. Not a hulking mass, not a lumbering lummox, not statuesque, not too tall.
So if he realizes this goal and unifies the cruiserweight division, he might need to make a pit stop first at Bridger before he tries to go all in at heavy.
Directly affects the potentiality of an Oleksandr Usyk showdown and Oleksandr Usyk fight, because in the time it's going to take Jai to do all of this, Usyk may have retired. Usyk's 37, going on 38. He's not going to be around forever.
So while Eddie keeps talking about that, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Unification matches have proven hard to come by for Jai Opetaia for one reason or another. The other two champions at the weight have mandatories to satisfy. That's Zurdo Ramirez, who I just talked about, and Badou Jack.
The World Boxing Council ordered Badou Jack to face his mandatory challenger Ryan Rozicki of Nova Scotia next. The two sides have until February 4th to negotiate a deal, and the fight must take place within 60 days of the deal being reached.
There's been no official announcement as of yet as to when this fight is supposed to take place, and there are only 2 weeks left in this month
before February gets here.
Slim pickings for Badou Jack, who hasn't boxed in all of 2 years, and now he has a very aggressive, very strong, hard-punching mandatory in front of him.
He's got the WBC title. That's worth something.
If he can hang on to it. But can he? At his age, he's 40 years old. He hasn't boxed in 2 years. Who's supposed to be promoting this show? Who is supposed to be promoting Jack versus Rozicki?
Ryan Rozicki is with Three Lions Promotions, a small promotional outfit based out of Canada. I don't get the sense that Badou Jack is going to travel to Canada to defend the green belt. I don't think it happens that way, but who promotes Jack?
If Three Lions Promotions is not going to promote this fight, who is?
Questions that need answers.
Because things at Cruiserweight are quite sorted at the moment. On the heels of Jai's last performance,
Julian Chua,
Zurdo's trainer, said Opetaia looked good against Naika, but Zurdo still beats him. Julian Chua, the trainer of Zurdo Ramirez, thought Jai Opetaia had a good performance against David Naika, but his opinion that Ramirez will beat Opetaia is unchanged. Opetaia knocked out Naika in the 4th round of their fight in a 12-round IBF Cruiserweight title fight, which served as Opetaia's first major fight of this year. Ramirez, 33, of Mexico, is training in LA with Chua at Brick House Boxing. He currently holds the WBA and WBO titles. Opetaia is the IBF and Ring Magazine champion. The two are widely considered the most distinguished fighters in the division. It was a good performance. He's strong, Zurdo said. He wanted to fight right away, and David Naika entertained it. Ramirez last fought in November, winning a UD over then champion Chris Billum-Smith. In March, he became a title holder, defeating the unbeaten Arsene Goulamarian, who held the WBA title. Ramirez with a record of 47-1 with 30 knockouts. Opetaia is open to get caught with shots when he is aggressive, but I've also seen Jai fight a very disciplined fight, where he kept his distance, Chua said. He doesn't have just one style.
That's very observant of Julian.
And he's right. If you saw Jai Opetaia versus Jack Macy and Jai Opetaia versus David Naika, he showed a lot more reserve and a lot more of his boxing brain with Jack Macy than he did with David.
He showed more composure with Jack, broke him down systematically, whereas with David Naika, he came out guns blazing, looking for an early finish.
Likely because David Naika is an old sparring partner of his. They're familiar with each other.
Jai already knew what he had, so he wanted to go home early.
Despite believing the Australian Opetaia, 29, had a good performance, Chua still believes Ramirez will be a handful for Opetaia. One thing Chua mentioned was Ramirez's ability to take a punch along with his strong technique. Though it seems Ramirez will not fight Opetaia next, Chua gives his thoughts. I think Zurdo wins if he fights Opetaia, Chua said. I try not to look too far ahead. I've been focused on the guy that I can't announce yet, but the guy we're supposed to fight, and I'm just taking it one step at a time.
Dorticos.
Sounds like that Dorticos fight is all but done, and why wouldn't it be? We've been known this is coming down the pipeline for a while now. Chua, who has been instrumental in Ramirez's career over the past few years, has faith in Ramirez against anyone, even if it is unbeaten Opetaia, who sports an unblemished record of 27-0 with 21 KOs. That could be a big fight, leading to unification. I obviously have Zurdo winning every fight, Chua said. I don't think that anyone at Cruiserweight can beat him.
But Jai Opetaia stands the best chance.
So it won't be Jai Opetaia next. It's gonna be Uniel Dorticos, otherwise known as El KO Doctor. If you didn't happen to catch the World Boxing Super Series in previous years, where Uniel fought twice in 2 separate seasons, he's a big guy, big reach, and a big punch, though he is up there in age.
Needs room to work, isn't that good mid-range to inside, which is how Russia's own Murat Garcia was able to pressure him, beat him, knock him out.
Big guy with big reach, long arms, needs room to get them out. Garcia didn't give Dorticos that room. That's how he beat him, and that's what Zurdo has to do.
Beat him from the inside out.
Fighting more like the Zurdo Ramirez we used to see at 168 and 175, playing a guy close to the chest and applying pressure, where it's harder for the guy with long arms to get his punches out. That's what he's got to do.
But it's important to note that Zurdo, for as good as he is, he does not punch as hard as Murat Garcia. He may not be able to land with the same authority.
Makes it through that fight, he can then make it to that Jai Opetaia showdown. Eddie Hearn has revealed that talks are underway with Golden Boy for a Cruiserweight unification clash with Jai Opetaia and Zurdo Ramirez to feature on a 5 versus 5 between the two promoters.
Like the one they had with Queensbury.
Though we don't yet have a date for Zurdo versus Dorticos, and we don't have an ETA for this tournament for Matchroom versus Golden Boy. When exactly is that supposed to go down?
Been talking a lot about this fight, Zurdo versus Jai, if Zurdo beats Dorticos.
What Zurdo Ramirez has over Jai Opetaia is more time under tension, more fights, more rounds, more experience, which results in better cardio and a better ability to pace himself, unlike Jai Opetaia, whose power is a gift and a curse.
Finishes a lot of these guys early, kills them quick.
But as a result, he doesn't have that much experience in the championship rounds. 10, 11, 12, and the only times we've seen him make it that far, he gassed out.
The Mayris Bridas fights, 1 and 2.
So what you have to ask yourself is, do you think Jai Opetaia kills Zurdo Ramirez quick? Do you think he can finish him within the first 6 rounds? Because if Zurdo can endure, if he can hang tough for the first 6,
the first half,
he may take over as Jai tires in the second half, the back end of the fight. Zurdo is technically a better inside fighter than Jai Opetaia, but not a stronger fighter than Jai Opetaia. Power so clearly goes to Jai.
Though Jai always loading up his punches causes him to gas out that much faster.
That's why that happens. It's a hell of a fight if they can make it, if we can get there.
Have to wait and see.